Hi, everyone, and welcome to this SCORE presentation on marketing basics for entrepreneurs. My name is Stephen Olson, and I'm a mentor with SCORE in the Chester and Delaware County chapter. And I'm anxious to hear David's presentation. I'm sure you're going to find some nuggets of knowledge here that you'll find useful in your business. But before David begins, I'd like to say a couple words about the organization that I volunteer with. SCORE is the nation's largest network of volunteer business mentors. Some of us have had significant corporate careers, and others have been successful entrepreneurs, starting, operating, and selling our businesses. At SCORE, we're dedicated to helping small businesses get off the ground, grow, and achieve their goals. And since 1964, we've provided education and mentorship to more than 11 million entrepreneurs. SCORE is a nonprofit organization and a resource partner of the U.S. Small Business Administration, the SBA. And thanks to the generous support from the SBA, plus the selfless contributions of our more than 10,000 volunteers nationwide, we can provide our offerings at no cost. Those volunteer numbers include over 100 members to help you in the Chester and Delaware counties. We provide this help through mentoring, volunteer webinars like this one, courses on demand, and a library of online resources. Plus, we're finally doing live in-person events again. The SBA would like you to know that they are not providing this information to you directly. We do have some rules of engagement for the day. You will be receiving a recording of everything that's said here today and the slides. You've been placed on mute so that you don't distract each other and David. Please put your questions in the Q&A box. That's what we'll use to review at the end of David's talk and answer any of the questions that you have in there. If you do have comments or references, you can put those in the chat. We're not going to respond to those. They can be shared, and please don't use the chat to promote your own company. So we're so pleased to have David Gerhardt with us today. Dave is a SCORE mentor with more than 35 years of marketing experience to get businesses, get found, get leads, and get sales. He has extensive expertise in digital marketing, lead generation, website development, sales, branding, event planning, content creation, thought leadership, positioning, a lot of things. And he looks forward to sharing this vast skill set to help small businesses succeed. And with that, David, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you all for attending this webinar. As Steve mentioned, I've been in marketing for about 35 years, and just to establish a little street credibility here, I just want to give a minute or so of background about myself so you know who's presenting. I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and different sized businesses, from dog trainers and cleaning services, fitness instructors, and a lot of startups, but I've also worked with larger organizations. I've worked with one of the largest call center operators in the United States as their director of marketing, 30 offices, 10,000 clients. At one point in my career, I worked for a publishing company and oversaw the marketing of 105 consumer magazines. So I have a lot of experience with both big and small companies. And while I'm retired, I do have an interesting side hustle as well, where we're not volunteering for SCORE. I produced the Philadelphia Eagles Spanish radio broadcast. So that's kind of interesting. So let me jump right in and show you what it is that we're going to talk about today. And this is really going to be high level. And one of the things I want to start with as a takeaway is that any of the things we're talking about today, you can work with a SCORE mentor to dig a little deeper if there's one particular area, or just marketing in general, a SCORE mentor will help you. But I've divided this presentation into three buckets: strategy, tactics, and helpful tools. And there's two things I really want you to pay attention to. If you forget everything else I talk about today, the two things I want you to remember would be differentiation and Google Business Profile. And I'll point those out as we go through, but those are really the two key takeaways I want you to have from this presentation. One of the questions I guess asked all the time is, well, what's the difference between sales and marketing? Aren't they the same? And they're really quite different. So let me start with that. the job of marketing is to build awareness and interest in the product or service. And the job of sales is to convert that interest into customers. And while the two are very much different, they have to work together in order to have a successful revenue generating program. Marketing and sales are really a team that are essential to work together. And we're going to see that as we go through this presentation. So let me start with strategy. When we talk about strategy, what we're really talking about is a plan, right? It's the plan that we're going to use to help us get the revenue that we're looking for. A lot of people think about marketing, they think about the tactical things, the emails, the website, social media, blog, and so forth. But tactical comes second. Strategy always comes before the tactical pieces. And one of the things I want to talk about strategy and why it's important is that if we're not using strategy, we run the risk of saying the right thing, but to the wrong people. Or even worse, we say the wrong thing to the right people. When we have a plan in place and understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish and who we're going after, it's much easier to say the right things to the right people. And that's going to help you save a lot of money as you go through your process. So what are the things that we need to focus on from a strategy standpoint? We need to understand who our customers are, what the competition is up to, how we differentiate ourselves. We need to talk about branding, and of course, our pricing model. And I'm going to address each of these as we go through. So let's start with customers. So we can't get any business, we can't generate any revenue until we get some customers through the door. So it's really essential that we start with understanding who our customer is. And one of the ways we do that in marketing is by using a tool called personas. It's a fictitious representation of who it is that we're trying to target. And one of the things that we want to do is create this fictional representation of our client by answering a bunch of questions about who they are. And by answering these questions, we get a better sense of who we're trying to market to and make sure we're marketing to the right people. And I'll give you an example. Let's say we're trying to open a hair salon, and we need to know who our best customers will be, or our best prospects for this hair salon. Because there's many different people and categories we can go after, but we have to start narrowing it down so our marketing is focused. So let's say we want to go after people who would be within a 15-mile radius of where our salon's located. We're probably targeting women, maybe between the ages of 30 and 60. These folks are probably strongly influenced by social media reviews. So it's going to be important to make sure that we have a salon where we're encouraging people to leave reviews. My guess is also that these folks are probably heavy users of Facebook and Instagram. So if we're going to advertise, we want to make sure we're using those mediums and putting our content out there. They're probably employed, they probably have children. And depending on how high scale or upscale the salon is, we're probably looking to target folks who have income of over $75,000 or more. So we need to get an understanding of who our audience is to make sure that we're positioning our message in the right way to the right people. So the first thing is understanding who we're going after, and you can use these questions to help identify who your audience will be for your products and services. Once we know who we're trying to target, the next thing we need to delve into is what's the competitive landscape look like. And this is really important because you need to know what the competition is up to so you know how to position your company. One of the first things that I do in any project that I work on is put together a competitive analysis. So it looks something like this. And this is essential because it allows you to see what it is that you're competing and who you're competing against. So what are they doing? How are they running their business? Who are they targeting? What are the features and benefits that they're offering? And how's that going to differ from what you're doing? What's their pricing structure? Are you going to do something a little different or the same? Are they focusing on the same geographic areas that you're targeting? And what about advertising? How are they advertising? And what's the hook in their advertising? You should know all these types of things so that you get a better understanding of what you're up against. The same thing with social media and how they differentiate themselves and their blogs. And another essential component would be the SEO, or the search engine optimization. What keywords are they using to get found? And their tools to use to find that information out. But it's really essential to understand what the competition is doing. And I'm going to give you some information on how you can go about getting the data that you're looking for to fill in a grid like this. So here's the first thing. One, you can go to their website. You could talk to their customers, see who their suppliers are, go into their business and walk around and take a look to see what they're doing. Maybe they're exhibiting at trade shows. You could actually go to the trade shows and pick up their material and see exactly what it is they're saying. You can look at their social media accounts, again, to get some information on what the competition is up to. You can buy their products or be a customer. Maybe they're providing a service that you can use to see how they're doing it. How do they treat the customers? Another thing you can do is see if they're mentioned in any trade publications or industry periodicals. What type of PR are they trying to get? What are they accentuating on their attributes that you should know about? And then there's also resources like the Chester County Library that may be able to give you information on the competitors in a specific vertical. So it's really important to understand what the competition is doing. Don't skip this step. You really want to make sure that you have a thorough understanding of the competitive landscape. The next thing, differentiation. This one's in green, so you know this one's important. This is really one of the key things that you should take away from this presentation, because one of your jobs as a business owner is to find ways to position your company as remarkable. And what I mean by that is if you're not remarkable, and if you're just like everyone else in your space, well, then you're positioning your company to be a commodity. And people pay the lowest price for a commodity. I don't want you to be a commodity. I want to show you how you can position yourself so that people are willing to pay a premium for your products and services. I'm going to tell you a little story about how to do that, and I'm going to give you some examples as well. Let me start by telling you a story. It's not my story. It's a story by a pretty popular marketing guru named Seth Godin, and he wrote a book called The Purple Cow. And instead of reading the book, I'm going to tell you exactly what that book is about in about a minute. So here we go. Let's say we all met tomorrow morning, and we got into a bus and we took a ride in the country, and pretty soon we see a black and white cow and another black and white cow and another black and white cow. And pretty soon we don't even notice the black and white cows anymore. Why? Because they're so common, we don't even pay attention. But what happens if we turn the corner and we see a purple cow? Whoa, we've never seen a purple cow before. So what do? The bus pulls over, we get out, we walk to the fence. Some people are texting, tweeting, putting stuff on Instagram. You're calling folks. And before you know, we have 100 people standing at the fence looking at that purple cow. Why? It's different, it's unique, it's remarkable, it's special. And because it has all those attributes, we're getting a crowd. And just like that cow has separated itself from the competition of the black and white cows, that's exactly what you need to do in your business to get attention. So when we separate ourselves and we position ourselves as remarkable, we get that attention that we need to help drive the business. And more importantly, we differentiate ourselves from the competition. Now, there are a lot of different ways you can differentiate yourself. And here are a couple, whether you're focusing on features or the quality and service that you have. Maybe you have extended hours. Perhaps you're positioning yourself as a thought leader in your space, or you have more certifications than your competition. Your price is better. There are many different things you can focus on. But the key is you need to understand what is it that you can do to position yourself in a remarkable way. Excuse me. Now, it's easy to say that, but let me give you a couple examples. And one thing I want you to notice when I go through these examples, being remarkable is not about how much money you spend. In most cases, to position yourself as remarkable really doesn't cost anything. It's just about being creative and how you position your offerings. So here's an example. At one point, I was asked by a company that had 13 apartment complexes to help them fill some of the vacant units they had. So I asked them, well, tell me what the process is that you use when a new tenant or an old tenant moves out and the new tenant moves in. And what they said is that old tenant gives notice, they move out, they send the maintenance team over, they paint the place, everything looks great, they patch up the holes and so forth. It looks brand new, the new tenant moves in, then they move on. The problem is that there's nothing remarkable about that. People were driving past their complexes to get to the competition. So what I suggested was, well, what if we did things a little differently? What if we allowed the new tenant to ask what color paint they wanted and they can have it? In this case, we allowed the new tenant to select from 7 different paint colors, each of which was easily painted over when they left. And what happened was we allowed the new tenant to customize the paint and accents of the new apartment. They still had to pay for the painters. They still had to pay for the paint. The only thing that we did was provide a remarkable situation that no one else was offering in their communities where they're operating. They allowed the customer, the tenant, to customize their place. Total cost, 0, because they had to pay for the paint and the painters anyway. And what happened was, in a very short amount of time, they started to reduce the unrented units. And when they were selling at a time or renting at a time at $1,500 a month, once they started selling those units, it started to be a huge windfall. Again, it happened very quickly and at no cost. Remarkable. Here's another example. At one point, I was working for a safety company, very good safety company. They specialized in making workplaces safety, very savvy management team, woman-owned business. And what happened was I was brought in as the marketing person, and I overlapped with my predecessor. And I'm literally there 15 minutes looking over his shoulder. He's sending out an email. And I said, hey, before we send out an email, let's take a look at the results of these past emails. He said, sure, we send these out every week. And literally within 20 seconds, I could see it was a total waste of time to send out the emails. No one was opening them. They weren't being viewed. And it was just, we do this because this is what we do every week. It didn't make any sense. I also learned that the company had a co-op program where they would get a percent of money from the vendors whose products they were selling. And every year they'd get about $150,000 worth of revenue from their vendors that they could spend to market those products, but they weren't using that money. It was really a shame. So I said to the management team, here's what we should do. Let's stop sending those emails that are wasting time. And let's find a way to use that co-op money. And this is the program I came up with. Let's launch a magazine, a digital magazine that we can send to our readers, our audience, our database, the people who were getting the email that weren't even looking at it. And when we send this magazine, we'll include it a lot of great content that will position us as a thought leader. And the pages in the magazine we can use to have advertisements from our co-op partners. And interestingly, what happened was, while those co-op partners started putting their page of advertising in the magazine, companies who weren't even co-op partners starting buying pages. So we're initially trying to recoup $150,000. It ended up generating about $200,000 in revenue. Total cost is 0. We just used the time that we're using on the emails to put the magazine together. And that not only generated revenue, but it helped position the company as a thought leader that we were striving to do. So it's really effective. So again, it's not about how much money you spend. It's just about taking a step back and figuring out how can you position your company in a remarkable way that your competition isn't. Okay, so that's remarkable. Let's not forget that one, very important. I want to advance now to branding. Branding, another exceptionally important component to your marketing program. But let me tell you what branding isn't. Branding isn't just about creating a logo. When you think about branding, what I want you to do is think about, forget the word brand and instead substitute reputation. So instead of saying, what's our brand? You could say, what's our reputation? What's our reputation in the marketplace? When people think about our company, what do they think about? Excuse me, it's all about how can you create a memorable identity for your space. And it's really important because with the right branding, you can command a premium pricing. Think about FedEx. They charge a lot of money because they've created a brand that says when it needs to get there, it's going to get there, right? They've done that with their brand. The same thing with companies like Apple. They've created a phenomenal brand where people pay a premium for Apple products because they know it's quality. And when we think about branding, it's not just about, as I said, the logo. It's about the look and feel of everything that you do. So your social media, your website, all the content you create, the collateral you have, it should all have that same look and feel so everyone knows that it belongs to the same company. A lot of times you go to a company's website and then you look at their social media, they don't even look like they belong to the same company. So we need to fix that. One of the things that you need to do as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, one of your responsibilities is to be what I call the brand cop, right? The brand police officer for your company, to make sure everything has the same look and feel, that your reputation is intact, that you have that white glove service that you're providing that people expect. So that's all part of the brand, and you can't skip that when you're putting your company together and thinking about how you want to position yourself. Next thing I want to address, pricing strategies. So when we talk about pricing, what we think about is what's the market price for a given product or service. And the market price, the definition of that would be, what's the average price that all your competitors are selling a product or service for in your geographic area. And once you have an understanding of what that price is, then you need to determine, well, how are you going to position your price relative to the market price? Is it going to be based on supply and demand issues? There are perceived value concerns. And by perceived value, what I mean is that, and I'll give you an example. I work with a dog trainer, excellent dog trainer, excellent credentials, had been doing dog training literally for decades, had numerous certifications, but was very concerned that she wasn't going to get business. So she had a very low price for her training services. And when I saw her price, I was very concerned about that. And what I said was, the first thing we should do is do a competitive analysis. Just like I said before, what's the competition charging for the same types of services that you're charging? And when she did that analysis, what she found was that the competition was charging nearly twice as much as she was. And I said, well, based on that, I think the first thing we should do is double your price. And she said, double the price? I'm never going to get any business if I double the price. I said, trust me on this one. What's happening is there's a perceived value issue. So people see your price and they see the price of your competition and they look at you and say, oh, you can't be very good. Your price is so low. But when she raised the price, surprisingly, literally within a day, she added 2 new clients who were paying twice as much as they were paying previously. And another interesting sidebar to that is, not only were they paying twice as much, but they were the ideal type of customers, because they said to themselves, because she's charging so much, she must be good. She knows what she's doing. I respect her opinion. And they listened to her without any qualms. So it turned out to be the best move that she can make. So one of the things you need to do when you think about pricing is, I have to be aware that I don't price my products and service so low so that the perceived value is so low that I'm not going to get any customers. So that's a really good lesson to keep in mind. Another thing that you want to consider is, what are the competitors pricing at? Are you going to be higher, lower, the same? Are you going to use markup pricing? Are you going to take the price that you pay for something, double it, and then go from there? Is that going to provide the necessary margin that you're going to need in order to make a profit? Is seasonality a factor? Certain items and products certainly cost more during different seasons. Is that going to be an issue? And then there's market prices. We talked about commodities. You don't want to be like everyone else. Let's find a way to position you so that you can be a premium provider. People are going to see value in what you do in such a way that they're actually going to be able to justify paying extra for your product or service, even though it may be very similar or the same as someone else. Maybe you have some add-ons to what you do to make it better. So part of your responsibility is really to figure out, how do we position ourselves from a pricing standpoint so that we can get as many customers as we can without them finding anything disparaging about our pricing methodology. So that's the strategic part of what we need to do. We talked about who are our customers. We need to understand geographically and demographically, what are those people interested in? What we need to do to target those folks. And mention the importance of who the competition is and making sure we understand what they're doing so we're not positioning ourselves as a commodity. Differentiation, how do we be remarkable? That's essential. We talk about branding, and of course we just covered pricing. So these are the strategic considerations. So strategy first. Once we have these pieces done, then we can work on the tactics. And the tactical things would be the things like the website and social media, blog, and so forth. So now let's talk a little bit about the tactical things that we need to work on. And we'll start with the website. So website, there's a couple things you need to understand about website and why this is so important. And maybe you're saying, maybe I don't even need a website. Maybe I can do without that. Well, here's some things that suggest otherwise. 93% of consumers are going to a website to do research when they're making significant purchases, or even researching insignificant purchases, to get a sense of what the company is like. The other thing that's important is consumers who don't see a website hold that against the company. So 84% of consumers say if they don't have a website and only social media, not so interested in what they have to say. So you really need this as table stakes to make sure that you're getting your foot in the door and people will have the respect before they even start to consider doing business with you. Here are a couple other things to keep in mind. When we talk about search engine optimization or SEO, that's the back end stuff that's on your website that makes it easy for Google and Bing and those search engines to find you and rank you so that you pop up when people do a Google search. And it's really important to make sure that your website is set up properly, because people don't look beyond the first page on a Google search. 96% will only go on the first page. There's a little joke in the marketing world where they say that the best place to hide a dead body is the second page of Google, because no one goes there, right? And that's so true. So you want to make sure your SEO is set up properly, and I'll cover that more in a minute or two. That's essential. When putting your website together, you want to make sure it's compatible from multiple platforms, whether it's Apple or PC. People can get the right information presented in a way that's going to be usable to them on a phone, whether it's Android or iPhone or so forth. So compatibility is something you need to consider when you're building your website. The other thing is that when you have a website, it's never a set it and forget it type thing. There's always maintenance involved. So either you're going to have to do the maintenance or work with a company who will do that. But recognize that you have to continuously update the site, not only with content, but also to make sure they're using best practices from a technology standpoint. And one of those things for best practices is security. You want to make sure you have a secure site. And you know it secures when you go to look at the URL, it has HTTP or HTTPS. The S on the end of that is for security, for secure. So you want to make sure you have that, because if you don't, Google holds that against you and you won't get the ranking that you deserve, right? So that's important. The other thing when building your website is it has to be scalable. You want the website to be able to grow as you grow. So make sure that's a component you consider. And then there are apps. Can the website add apps? And I'll give you an example when I talk about apps and websites. So let's say you want to allow people to schedule a meeting with you. So you have on your website, get a no commitment consultation, click here to schedule a call. Well, if you use an app like Calendly, it allows Calendly to look at your calendar, see what times are available, and presents that to the website visitor so they can pick a time that works for them. There are many, many, many apps that you can use and attach to the website, but that's one simple example of how you can use an app to enhance the user experience. 4 things that I want you to consider when you think about the website. First, you want to make sure the website's designed for the customer that you have in mind, that you're targeting the right people. And with that in mind, I have a really good piece of advice for you. If you're designing a website, you have the first draft, here's what not to do. Don't ask your spouse or your golf buddy or your friends or your siblings for their opinion and say, how do you like this? Is this great? What do you think of this? Their opinion doesn't count. And you're like, wait, what? That doesn't even make sense. I'm going to tell you why that makes sense. The person whose opinion counts is the people that you're trying to sell to. So I'll give you an example. And there's a 2-pronged approach here. So, and I'll just make this up. Let's say you're a farmer and you grow all types of produce, and you want to start selling directly to supermarkets. So you want to create a website so that when you go to Wegmans, you can say, take a look at our website, you see the types of things that we have. So in this case, instead of showing your spouse and your friends and your siblings your website, what I would do is I'd reach out to the produce buyer at Wegmans and say, John, let me introduce myself. I'm a farmer, a local farmer in the area. I'm creating a website that I want to show you and other supermarkets that how we can provide produce to you. And because I respect your business acumen, I'd like to show you a preview of my website and get your opinion on the site and get any suggestions from you that you may think would make the website better. Now, by doing this, you're accomplishing two things. One, you just introduced yourself to a prospect, the guy at Wegmans, who may be your best customer, and you found a unique way to do that. The other thing is when John at Wegmans starts to give you advice and how to make the website better, he has now invested in your company, in your website, and he's going to say, yeah, when you make those changes, show it to me again, let me see what it looks like. So it's really important to get the opinion of the people that really matter, not the folks who are going to tell you what you want to hear. And you can use that in a way to help drive revenue and get turn prospects into clients. So that's an interesting tip for you. Another interesting website principle, and I touched on this earlier, you really need to make sure that your SEO is totally up to speed. In fact, if I were going to spend money on one area of my business, one of the things I would want to focus on is when I set up my website is to make sure the SEO is set up properly. And there are companies that can help you do that. It's not that expensive, but really an essential tool. Another thing that's important is you need to have calls to action on your website. And when I say calls to action, what I mean is you want to get the visitors to your website to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm interested in what you have to say. Tell me a little bit more about what it is that you do and how you can help me. And the way you do that is you have different offers on the website. So let's say that you're a car mechanic and you want to entice people to use your services. You can have something on your website, 5 questions to ask before selecting a car mechanic. Well, anyone who downloads that piece of content is a great prospect for you because only someone who's looking for a car mechanic would do that. Now you have their email address and contact information in exchange for getting that piece of content, and you can follow up with them. You could do the same thing like I mentioned before with click to schedule a conversation or get a free demo or whatever the case may be. But have lots of call to actions on the website. The more calls to action, the more likely you are to get people to raise their hand and identify themselves as a prospect. And the last thing, a principle to live by for the website is you want to make sure you have Google Analytics attached to the website. It's free, right? It doesn't cost anything and allows you to see what's working, what isn't. I definitely subscribe to the theory of that which gets measured gets acted upon, right? And I'll give you an example of how you can do this with Google Analytics. One of the things you can measure with Google Analytics is something called the bounce rate, right? And the bounce rate tells you what % of people come to a specific page and leave before they do anything. So a high bounce rate would be bad. So let's say you looked at your Google Analytics for the bounce rate on your homepage. And all this is very easy to figure out. And the fact that you don't know how to do it, a score mentor can show you how to do this. So very simple. You go to the website or Google Analytics, you look at the bounce rate for the homepage, and if you see that the bounce rate is very high, what that tells you is that your homepage messaging doesn't resonate with your visitors. They're leaving before they do anything, and that tells you that you need to make a change on your homepage messaging. A really simple example, but there's so many different things you can gather from your Google Analytics, but the takeaway is you need to measure to see what's happening so you can take action. All right, this one's green, so we know this one's important. Google Business Profile, right? Here's what a Google Business Profile is. Right, so if you typed in bakery near me in a Google business search, you're going to get a page that pops up that looks like this. And what this is going to tell you is that here are the businesses in your area. Well, you certainly want to be one of these businesses, right? And if, say, you clicked on the middle one, JMC, this would pop up. It would give you information about the specific business, where they're located, their hours, and so forth. The reason this is so important is that Google tells us is that it's the #1 free marketing tool that business owners can use. Doesn't cost anything. My favorite fee for marketing services, free. The other thing that's important to know is that it's really essential. In fact, more important than Facebook or Instagram, your LinkedIn profile. And the reason that is because when most consumers are doing a search, they're looking for services and products that they can find very close to where they are. 80% of people want services and products that are within their immediate geographic area. So this is going to tell them exactly where you are in relation to where they are, right? And it makes it easy for a company that's in a specific geographic area. So say you're only focused on 20 miles from your area of business. This will allow your business to pop up when someone does a search. Another thing that's key is that when your page is set up properly, your Google business profile, and there's a link that you can go to figure out how to do that, which we'll provide you when you get the presentation here. It's going to show all the pertinent information that the user is looking for when they do the search, right? Where your hours, where you're located, the reviews, and so forth. And speaking of reviews, you want to encourage people to leave reviews for two reasons. One, the more and better reviews that you have, Google looks at that as an asset to your business and will rank you higher. And it also gives you an opportunity to interact with your customers. So it's certainly one of the most important things to do. If you're gonna do something, remember Google Business Profile, one of the key takeaways from this presentation. Next, let's talk about content marketing. So content marketing is something you should be not scared about, right? Maybe you're not a writer and you're like, I can't create content. I don't know what to do. I'm going to give you a little shortcut here. First, let's talk about different types of content. And what happens is we want to create content that varies based on where people are in their buyer journey, right? So I mentioned earlier that the job of marketing is to create awareness and interest, and the job of sales is to convert that interest into customers. So if we look at the buyer stages, awareness, interest, and decision, and then the last one is advocacy, where we want to turn our customers into evangelists for our products and services. So depending on where people are in their buyer journey, we want to create different types of content that will appeal to them. So if they're just learning about us in the awareness stage, well, blogs and videos and infographics and so forth. The more they learn about us, so they're interested in this. Now we want to get a different type of content that we want to provide to them. Maybe it's case studies and provide demos, or have events that we can invite them to. And when they're ready to make a decision, again, we have another different type of content we could provide, whether it's consultations and testimonials and things along those lines. And then once they become customers, again, we can create another different type of content that we can put in front of them that will have them make it easier for them to be evangelists. Now, one of the things I want you to keep in mind is that you don't have to be a someone who has an advanced degree in writing to create content. One of the things that you can do is use a tool like ChatGPT to help you create content. Again, you don't have to be an expert in ChatGPT. A member of the SCORE team, a SCORE mentor, can show you how to use those tools, and literally in minutes you can create content that previously may have taken you many hours to do. So don't be intimidated by the need for creating content. Content can be very useful, as I mentioned earlier, to get people to raise their hand, to make your case why you're the obvious choice to work with, and then to solidify with your customers on how they can be advocates for you going forward. So content is a key component of the marketing mix. Okay, let's talk about email marketing. Email marketing, really essential, right? Why? Because it's the one tool, one tactic that provides the highest return on investment over and over again. The average ROI for an email campaign, $40. For every dollar you spend on email marketing, you get $40 back, right? Makes it a very compelling argument to use email marketing. The other thing you can do with email marketing is use it as a tool to continuously grow your business. In fact, the majority of small, medium-sized businesses use email marketing to continuously grow and retain customers. Here are a couple of interesting stats that will also help you. When you add content to your emails, like video, it increases the click rate 300%. That's amazing. And you can create those videos right from your cell phone. So it's really easy to do. The other thing that you can do to increase your response rate is personalize it, right? So whether it's you're personalizing in the subject line or including the company's name that you're targeting in the body of the email, very easy to do. And when added to the subject lines, it increases the open rate 50%. So that's essential. Let me give you a couple other tips about email marketing. There are lots of tools out there that can help you to select the right platform, whether it's Constant Contact, MailChimp, and so forth, and they're relatively inexpensive, right? When you create content, make sure it's short, really good quality content. Don't be selling, instead provide informative educational content. Have lots of links, add videos, make sure there's call to actions. You want to test and do lots of different types of testing. You can do A/B testing on subject lines. So you send part of the list has one subject line, the other part of the list has a different subject line, and see which performs best. So that's an A/B test. So you can send the best performing subject line to the remaining size of your list. Other things you want to do is constantly monitor and check what's going on to see, are you getting the right results? Check the send rates, the open rates, the click-throughs, and so forth. We also want to make sure you're compliant, right, with all the canned spam rules. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're going to get blacklisted. Here's another great rule to live by. When you're creating emails, don't let the subject lines be more than 33 characters. 33 characters, wait, that seems so random. Nope, there's a reason. Why? Because your cell phone can only contain 33 characters in the subject line. We know that more than half of people look at their emails on their cell phone. So if you don't want your subject line to be cut off, keep it to 33 characters. Good rule to live by. All right, let's keep going. Let's talk about social media. Social media, really important, right? 97% of adults use or visit social media. I'm betting everyone in this webinar engages in social media. And there's different types of social media depending on the audience that you're trying to reach and what their interest is, right? So I've listed the top social media platforms, and then I've listed the types of content that you can create for each platform, because each platform is targeting someone who's slightly different interests, and they're looking for different types of information within that platform. So people like my age are more interested in Facebook. Younger people may be more interested in Instagram and Snapchat. So we have to make sure the content we're providing is relevant to what they're looking for. So for example, if a company is creating a Facebook account, an Instagram, a Twitter account, what are you going to put in those? So maybe the Facebook is the fun side of the company, and Instagram shows more of the graphic things that you have to do, and Twitter is providing more flash news and information that people want. So we can have different types of content in the different types of social media platforms, which will help. Why should we use social media? I put together a list of 10 reasons. So one, it's going to increase your brand awareness, right? That's really essential, right? People can't do business with you unless they know that you exist. So you help further that cause by putting content in social media. You want to be positioned as a thought leader. That's always important. You can drive traffic to your website. A lot of people are going to use the social media to learn information, and you can use that as a way to trigger them to come to the website. And when they get to the website, you can convert those visitors into leads, which is important. You can create content, which is great. Reputation management and crisis communication kind of go hand in hand. Let's say there's an issue with a product that you have. You can use social media to talk to and alert your social media followers about that. You can engage with your audience, have them ask questions and respond to those questions. It's similar to what you can do with customer service and provide support. And then the other thing is all of these social media channels exist so that they can create revenue for themselves, and they do that by selling advertising. So you can get very targeted in your advertising based on the types of things that you're looking for the selects, whether it's whether male, female, income, what their interests are, and so forth. You can really get micro into who you're trying to audience and reach those folks. Okay. Let me touch base on one last component that I think is essential, because this is the question I'm asked all the time. How much money should I spend on marketing? What should my marketing budget be? I'm going to give you two examples of two different ways to look at this. So here's the first way, right? There's a couple essential components that you need to have as part of your marketing mix. branding, website, SEO, social media, email marketing that I just mentioned. And when you get this deck, right, you're going to see all these things are hyperlinks. So you can click on any of these and it'll take you right to that vendor and get more information. But this gives you a rough idea of what it's going to cost per month, about $500 or so for the essentials, right? And then in addition to the essentials, you have other things that you may need. Things like maybe you're going to do some digital advertising. There's expertise there that you'd really benefit from, or traditional advertising. Maybe you want to do something on a billboard or in a magazine. Maybe you want to hire someone, so a marketing staff is going to add to the expense, or use a marketing agency, public relations, and so forth. So there are other expenses that you can add to the minimum, but know that it's not a set it and forget it thing. You're going to have to set things up to pick up where your lack of expertise is, so you don't let things fall through the crack, opportunities fall through the crack. One other thing I would say is, from marketing budget, you can look at it from a different perspective. And here's another way to think, well, how much money should I allocate toward marketing? And to use this next example, we really just need to look at 3 assumptions. And I'll start with the assumption that you want to grow your business by $100,000, right? And let's say, for this illustration's sake, that the average sale is $1,000. So we need to get 100 new clients to get $100,000. And let's also assume that our close rate is 50%. So with a 50% close rate, we're going to need about 200 quotes or proposals to get 100 new clients. So now the question is, how many leads are we going to need to get those 200 quotes and proposals? And usually the rule of thumb is 3 to 5 times as many. So in this example, we're going to need to generate 600 to 1,000 leads over the course of the year to generate 200 quotes with a close rate of 50%. That'll give us 100 new clients at $1,000 each to give us $100,000. Now, with this information, now you go back and you say, well, what tactics are we going to use to generate those 600 to 1,000 new leads? And what is it going to cost us for those tactics? So you don't have to pull a number out of the air and kind of guess. You can use this type of approach where you're using some assumptions, and you can be much closer to putting together a real plan, a marketing plan that you can assign dollars to, that'll allow you to put together a program that gives you the tactics you need to generate the leads you need to get to the revenue goal that you're seeking to achieve. Okay, so summary, right? We talked about the strategic considerations, we talked about the tactical considerations, and we went through each of these. Really straightforward. A couple things to take away. One, strategy before tactics. Yes, the tactics are going to be important, but not as important as the strategy is on the front end. So we got to do those things first. The other thing to remember, you have to differentiate yourself from the competition, or you're going to be positioning yourself as a commodity. No one wants to be a commodity. And the other thing is, particularly for smaller businesses that are just starting out, spend the time and effort to make sure you have a Google business profile and you're using best practices to set that up. When you do that, you're putting yourself in a position to get found. People can't do business with you if they can't find you. So we really want to make sure that's the case. And with that, open to questions. Steve, what do we have?
Here we go. We have a couple questions from Stacy. One, do you recommend or not using TikTok as a social media vehicle?
It depends, right? There's usually not a hard and fast answer to these types of questions. So it depends on, first, when we do that persona development and who our customer is my customer going to TikTok to look for information? Is that how it's best to reach them? So that's the first question to answer. And one of the ways to figure that out is look at your competition. Are they using TikTok? And if all your competitors are using TikTok, that kind of gives you a signal that, okay, maybe this is something I should be doing if this is what my competitors are doing. So you said that's the first rule of thumb is this where my clients are going? Is this what my competition is using?
Thank you. The next question, and how important is it to use influencers on social media to market your product or service? What's the
Yeah.
best way to identify and engage top influencers?
Yeah, influencers are an excellent way to help spread the word on um, your products and services to get it out there. And there's different ways to do that. So depending on the field that you're going in, what you want to do is approach an influencer and say this key sentence. I have an angle that I think your audience will be particularly interested in. And when you say that, the next thing that influencer is going to say is, I'm all ears. And then you have, right, the next sentence to make or break your presentation. So as Rod Stewart said in one of his songs, my ad lib lines were well rehearsed. It's the same thing for you when you're pitching your service to a influencer. Your ad lib lines need to be well rehearsed, so you know you're saying the right things to the right person. So you want to position yourself as an expert to that influencer who they think will be of value, that your content, your contribution will be of value to their audience. So the goal is to position your message to that influencer in a way that makes it clear that they think, oh, my audience would definitely benefit from hearing what you have to say. I should definitely include you. And then, of course, when you're working with that influencer, you want to make sure there's a call to action so that that audience can be in touch with you if when you're done with that segment.
Thank you. Next, Alicia asked, how do I get email leads? Is there a company where I can buy email leads?
I'm always reluctant to buy email leads for a number of reasons. One, you got to contend with the laws regarding, did people give you permission to send to them, yes or no? It's a dicey thing. And for the most part, you're dealing with people who have not asked for information from you. It's kind of intrusive, right? That's traditional outbound marketing, as opposed to inbound marketing where people have come to you and said, hey, how can you help me? So what I would do is I would use lots of call to actions on the website to get people to give you their contact information so you can create a database, right? That's one way. The other thing is when you're dealing with people, say it's in a business where people are coming into a store, ask them for their email address so you can create a database. And once you have that database, you want to market to them on a semi-regular basis so that you can keep your awareness high. But again, keep that information informative and educational. Don't always try and sell. You want to provide content where those folks look at you as a thought leader in your space. And even if they're not a customer, when they're getting ready to provide or select a provider for a service or a product that they need, you want them to think of you as the obvious choice to work with because you've already made the case through the emails that you've sent and the content you've provided them. So look for ways to collect information and create a database and continuously market to those folks, or as we say in marketing, to drip on them on a semi-regular basis.
Thank you. Rogelio asks, will you be sending the slideshow? I want to learn more about how to set up better SEO from my website.
Yes, you're going to get the deck. And the other thing that I would suggest is that when you get the deck, there's going to be information on how you can get a SCORE mentor. And there are, as Steve mentioned, there's over 100 SCORE mentors in our chapter, and there's definitely some that have expertise in SEO who can help you.
Yes.
And not only can they help you, but they could also point you in the direction of some businesses who can provide those services for you for a fee as well.
Thank you. Then Philip asks, I've engaged a few website brand designers and their costs for services seem to settle around $5,000. Do you believe this is a generalized price for a good website and a branding specialist?
It really depends. It's hard to give It depends on what is it that you want your website to do. Is it an e-commerce site? How many pages is it? I've worked with websites. The last website I put together had literally thousands of pages. And if someone's going to charge $5,000 for that, I would say there's a perceived value issue there, right?
Mhm.
So it really depends on what it is that you want to do. What platform is it going to be? How much control are you going to have over the website? And one of the things that you want to make sure is that you maintain total control over the website. You control the domain. You don't want to be held hostage by that company who creates the website, which I've seen happen many times. So you want to avoid that. It really depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish with the website, how comprehensive it's going to be, what the goals are, and so forth. So I don't think there's a simple $5,000 is the right amount. It really depends. But again, a score mentor can help you get to the bottom of that.
Then Lamara asks, says, marketing requires a lot. Would you suggest using the marketing budget to hire someone to do the marketing? If so, do you know of any reasonable companies that would fit a small company?
I'm an advocate of using staff, right? So if you can find a generalist who has expertise in a variety of areas and they're working for you directly, I think that's typically where you get the biggest bang for your dollar. But there may be areas where that person is just semi-knowledgeable and it pays to go outside of that person to get the benefit of expertise from companies who specialize maybe in SEO or digital advertising. Those areas take very specific expertise to excel. And if you're not doing them properly, you're wasting time and money. So you want to make sure the person that you use or the companies that you use have proven expertise in your specific field, right? So I really make sure that they understand your vertical very clearly. As far as where to go for those people, that's a tough one. I think there's different sources like HubSpot that may have career sections to their website, and other marketing service providers where you may be able to find people. But I think it's just a matter of doing an online search for those and your network, maybe
Yeah.
through LinkedIn, put something out there.
And for some of the supporting companies like SEO optimization, you put some links to a few companies in your presentation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's all of the questions we have, and I have a couple more slides. Thank you so much, David. I thought that was a great presentation. You covered a lot in a short amount of time, and Amara's right. Marketing requires a lot. So thank you so much for sharing.
And thank you all for attending. Appreciate it.
I'm going to stop recording. What I am going to do here is launch a poll, and we would certainly appreciate getting some feedback on how we might make this better and to make sure that this is fitting the needs of our community of entrepreneurs. So if you could take a few minutes and just respond to that, that would be great. I'm going to share a couple more slides, and that's all I have. Dave mentioned that we have lots of mentors that can help you. And if you would like some help, here's a link and a phone number. And we've got some really excellent people that can help. And if you need a little bit of help on the process, you can call that number, or let's see, you could even visit our location in Westchester. And our office administrator, Kat Weisenberger, is great. If you have questions about the process, doing something online or anything with the company, you can call her or visit at that site. And so the SCORE website has just so much information in it. I think you'll find it very useful for details on marketing or other aspects of your business. I'd encourage you to go there. So with that, that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, David, and I hope you all have a great day.